A friend of mine, actually, who works for Preservation North Carolina, reached out to me. I was in Florida at the time and said, there's a great position open in Wake Forest. We'd love to get you back in North Carolina. You should apply. And so I did, and the rest is history. I was lucky enough to get hired.
Hi, I'm Bill Crabtree. Welcome to Wake Forest Perspectives. We're going to spend the next several minutes with one of my favorite people with the town of Wake Forest, Michelle Michael, our historic preservation planner. Michelle, thanks for being here.
Thank you, Bill.
I tell everybody that you're one of my favorite people because you're clearly one of the most organized people I know. And so anytime we work together on projects, I know I can count on you to get us through the tough times. So I appreciate everything you do. I was just looking over the bio that you sent me earlier. It's hard to believe you've been with the town for 6 years.
Time flies.
Think back, what interested you in coming to Wake Forest 6 years ago?
Well, interestingly, I had looked at relocating to Wake Forest in the early 2000s and had come up. Some of my friends had moved here and bought houses and had started renovating houses, and so I had an interest 20 years ago. It didn't work out. So when a friend of mine, actually, who works for Preservation North Carolina, reached out to me, I was in Florida at the time, and said, there's a great position open in Wake Forest. We'd love to get you back in North Carolina. You should apply. And so I did, and the rest is history. I was lucky enough to get hired.
Talk about 6 years ago when you first got here, the town's historic preservation efforts. Talk about the changes and the progress that we've made over those past 6 years.
Well, we've been busy, as you know, and my predecessor did a great job. She had been here for a long time, did a fantastic job with the preservation program, and the town shows. You can see it when you drive through the historic core. So my job was easy. I had to pick up where she left off, and she was very organized also. So she even left me a notebook with things to follow and make sure I did. And since then, we've built on that. I think probably one of the things that I've done and been most successful at is getting some grants so that we could do things like the walking tour narration component for the app, and also for the Ailey Young House and architectural survey and a variety of things. So I think we've just taken the program to the next level.
I've talked to other people, you know, we've had other interviews before talking to you, and it's interesting to hear everybody's perspective on how COVID has impacted what they're doing and their efforts and operations. How has COVID impacted what you guys are doing in historic preservation?
It's been challenging. We've moved all of our meetings to virtual so that the Historic Preservation Commission, continue to meet every month, and that's worked out well, I think. We've had public participation, we've been able to keep the work going through, so that's been good. We've had to cancel all of our in-person activities, which includes the walking tours that we usually give in the spring, and that's disappointing. That's one of the things that we really enjoy doing because it gets us out in the public to share the historic resources and the history of Wake Forest. So that's been disappointing. But those are the main things, I think. And just day-to-day operations, as far as the planning department goes and what we're doing with the historic preservation program, I don't think we've missed a beat from COVID. We've been able to continue working and maintain contact with the public, and it's worked out okay. Not the best of situations, but we'll work through it.
You know, one thing that I'm always impressed by, you mentioned the walking tours that you usually offer in the spring, and you and I work very closely on that and getting the dates lined up and allowing people to register for those. And what's amazing is the interest in the history of Wake Forest, because most of the time those tours are full before they arrive. Talk a little bit about that.
They are. It's crazy how that's worked out. When we started that, it was just a few years ago, and I decided I needed to get out of the office a little bit and had been looking for ways to engage the public a little bit more than our usual activities. And so just doing 1 week started off immediately. We sold, we don't sell tickets, but we sold out. They were at capacity every week. And that has worked out so well. I think what people are struck by, because at every tour, it's about 12 people. And the first question I ask them is, how long have you lived in Wake Forest? For those of you who have lived here less than 5 years, raise your hand. And inevitably, almost everybody raises their hand. So I think that is really, people are interested in the history. And the great thing about Wake Forest is just by walking down the street, you can tell the story of the history of Wake Forest because we have such great tangible evidence of that history.
Yeah, no, and unfortunately the in-person tours are canceled, but the town offers a number of virtual ways that people can you talk a little bit about that?
We do. We're lucky. We've worked closely with our GIS department and with you, and we have 2 walking tours that are available online through the town's app. You can access the downtown walking tour and the local historic district walking tour. There's a narration component. You can walk through the district by listening to your cell phone, or you can even watch from your couch and do a tour. We also have paper brochures, walking tour brochures that kind of augment that. There's a tour of the historic cemetery that the Cemetery Advisory Board has put together. So there's lots of ways to engage in Wake Forest history without doing it in person.
Now, speaking of tours that we can't do in person, let's talk about the Christmas Historic Home Tour. So you guys announced a couple of weeks ago you're not going to be able to have the tour this year. Typically, it's held on even number of years, so that would have been this December that you guys would have had it. Where are we now with the Christmas Historic Home Tour?
Yeah, it was a really hard decision. As you know, the Historic Preservation Commission and the Women's Club partner on the Historic Home Tour, and the Home Tour has been going on since the 1980s. I think we've only missed one since that time, so this will be the second one. We haven't missed it, we've just postponed it. But in thinking about the Home Tour and all the logistics, I think a lot of people, it's a great day, and it's something that we all look forward to and really enjoy doing. The homeowners, the visitors, the Women's Club docents, everybody. It's just a team effort. But I think a lot of people don't realize, well, how are we going to ask somebody to invite 2,000 of their closest friends in for a Saturday afternoon right now? And also, most of our volunteers, are over 45, 50 years old, so we need to take that into account as well. And it's just, it's not the ideal event for a pandemic. So right now, we've decided that we're going to push it back. So it'll be in December of 2021, and we'll start a new tradition of odd-numbered years, and we'll see how it goes.
So talk about adjusting on the fly. That's exactly what you guys are doing.
That's all we can do.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Another thing I want to talk to you about is the Ailey Young House.
Yeah.
And so I think it's a historic property that not a lot of people know about. Take us through how the Ailey Young House was discovered and the efforts that have been made since then to renovate it, where we are now.
Where we are now. So the Ailey Young House was built around 1875, we think. It's a Reconstruction era African-American historic resource. And in 2008, the town got a grant to do a historic architecture survey. And what that entails is an architectural historian is hired, and she or he will go through town and document everything that's over 50 years of age and determine if it's eligible for listing in the National Register of Historic Places. And this is part of our comprehensive planning process. We do this every so often. We're doing one now, just to document and make sure we know what we've got and so that we can protect it. And so Ruth Little was the architectural historian who was hired to do that survey. And she had been working in the African American community and had heard from several people that there was this house in the woods that she needed to look at. And so one day she went into the woods and found it, and what she found was a rare survivor of Reconstruction. There just aren't any of these out there. Unfortunately, most of them were destroyed, between the 1940s and the 1970s through urban renewal and other activities such as that. So this one is a real rare find, and it is just an exceptional example of that type of architecture. And so Ruth documented it, brought it to the attention of the town, and the preservation planner at the time was Agnes Wanman, and she really championed it. And it was designated as a historic landmark. Unfortunately, at some point in its history, probably in the 1980s, it suffered a fire. It's a miracle the house is still standing, because it's an all-wood house. Right. It did have a metal roof on it, which I'm sure that's the only thing that saved it. Most of the roof structure and attic, the loft area, and the west side interior was destroyed. So trying to save it has been a challenge. I've been here 6 years, and in 6 years, I've been fortunate to receive a couple of grants. And at this point in time, the Ailey Young House is 95% restored. We just reconstructed the chimney, completely redid the west side interior, all of the loft, the roof structure has been rebuilt, a new standing seam metal roof has been put on it, and the chimney has been reconstructed. We're getting designs done for the porch, and we've had paint analysis done to find out what the original paint color was. So the Ailey Young House is on its way, and what we're hoping it will be is an African American heritage site so that we can celebrate the significant history of the Northeast community.
And so if people are interested in helping support that cause and helping restore the home, what do they need to do?
Absolutely. The town is accepting donations towards the Ailey Young House. You can go online, go to www.wakeforestnc.gov and search Ailey Young. And on the right side of the screen is a little line that says donate here. And just click on that and we'll be glad to take your donation. Even though the house is stabilized, we still have a lot of work to do. We want to get the house painted, get the porch constructed, and of course, we've got quite a bit of landscaping and some site design to do.
But future plans to offer tours and that kind of thing?
Yeah,
or?
the hope is once we get the landscape and the site development in place, we would love to have it open for special events and tours on certain days.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, I know we have this conversation in the halls of Town Hall all the time about how there's no shortage of things that are going on.
Yes.
I know right now we're in the process, we've just kicked off the plan to update the Northeast Community Plan.
Right.
So talk a little bit about where we are with that and what's in store moving forward.
Absolutely. We're really excited about this project, and I am personally very excited to be a part of it. In 2007, the Planning Department completed their first plan of the Northeast Community, and they did the Northeast Neighborhood Plan. So we're 13 years later, if you can believe that, and it's time to update that plan. So we are working with the Northeast Community Coalition and neighborhood residents to try to capture what their vision is for their neighborhood. And then we have hired a consulting firm from Alexandria, Virginia, RHI, and they are planners, urban designers, and landscape architects. And they have teamed with other professionals to do market analysis and public outreach. And they are looking forward to engaging the community, shaping the vision of the neighborhood, and then implementing a plan, putting a plan in place that we can carry that neighborhood through to the next 10 to 20 years.
So we want to go ahead and give the Northeast community a heads up right now. There are going to be plenty of opportunities to participate and engage in the future of their community.
Absolutely. And with COVID, it's a little bit challenging.
Sure.
Because we can't have face-to-face events. So we are seeking, opportunities and alternatives to how we would normally do that public outreach and trying to engage what's the best way to do that, whether that's through door hangers, mailed survey, online, and then of course we'll be using Zoom or other platforms to do virtual meetings.
Right. Now, obviously you don't have anything else going on, Michelle, so so anything else going on in historic preservation you want to make sure people know about?
One other thing that we are doing is, as I mentioned, Ruth Little had done the 2008 architectural survey update. So we received a grant this year from the State Historic Preservation Office through the Historic Preservation Fund to update that architectural survey. So we have a consultant who is currently documenting all the buildings that were constructed between 1958 and 1975.
Wow.
To determine if we have anything built during those years that may be eligible for the National Register. And that should be wrapping up in the next couple of months.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, it's good stuff.
So even though COVID has had an impact, progress continues in a lot of areas. So.
Yeah, I think given the time that we're in, we're fortunate that we have the technology that we can continue to do our work. I'm really grateful for that.
I mentioned this to you before we got started.
Yeah.
We're going to end every program on Wake Forest Perspectives by asking our guests to complete this sentence. If not for Wake Forest, what?
I wouldn't have had the opportunity to work in a place that has so many layers of history that you can see by driving down the street or walking down the road, or had the opportunity to engage with the Northeast community as I have through the Ailey Young House and the Northeast Plan. I'm very grateful for the opportunities.
Michelle, that's great. We appreciate what you do.
Thanks so much, Bill.
Thanks for watching Wake Forest Perspectives. We'll see you next week.